Welcome back to part 2 of the Magic Hands Power-Up effect. Now this is actually video 3 of the intro to BiFrost for complete beginners. Now without further ado, I'll hand you back over to Phil, aka Maya Guy.
So at this point, I'm probably looking at all this thinking, it looks a bit complicated in here. I mean, it doesn't. We can get more complicated looking graphs, but we can minimize all of these little nodes. Like so, and it's up to you how you want to place them. You know, you could just start doing something like that and, you know, drag them over so it looks a bit neater. Or maybe you'd like to just, if we just do a selection like this over everything and then right click in the space, we can create a backdrop. And we can just call this source 2 or left hand, like so. And with that selected, we can click on these 3 little dots here and we can choose a color. We can also choose a custom color. Maybe you like black, like I do. And then we've got, you know, our source looking like that on that one. And I'll do the same here, here. You know, and then again, just drag a selection over all of them. Backdrop. I'll call this right hand. And we'll just zip into here, and you know, we could have a grey one. Yeah, there's grey, green. I don't know. It's whatever you like. I'm going to go for 2 blacks because I just like how it looks. So yeah, that's, you know, another thing is to sort of keep your graphs neat and tidy. Is going to allow you to sort of read it better and even pass it on to a colleague perhaps. You may want to put notes in here as well. You know, let's say your colleague's going to get in the morning and just start working on this scene before you do, then you could just leave them a note. So if I just drag a selection here and go create a sticky note, I can start typing in a note, you know, like I have used 2 sources instead of 1, and feel free to tweak the very source nodes for a better look. Okay, and then, you know, we can just put that wherever we want to put that, leave it nice and big if we want, change the color of it, whatever, you know. And then, you know, we've got sources, we've got labels that will remind us what we need to do. We can even kind of nest these underneath different nodes, you know, just to remind ourselves of different things, because there's a lot to think about in 3D. Collider, we don't need to use the collider at all. We're not colliding with anything today. We've got a turbulence field, but we could add in some more fields. We could add in a bit of our own drag. So if I just type in drag here, this is just going to be an extra influence, which is going to allow us to kind of slow those particles down. And at the moment, the drag is set to 5. And by slowing the particles down, you'll get to see the movement some more of those fractals within the turbulence. So if we put this to like 50, we can see that the particles, you know, retain a lot less motion. They retain a lot more drag, and you get to see it more. But it's you know, obviously we don't want it set at 50, so we just, you know, kind of put 1 in there, and it's just going to allow us like some extra control to slow those particles down. And the other thing you can actually do is animate it. So if you wanted the particles to slow down over time, you could then grab the drag, which is here, back into the input node. If you've lost the input node, you can, you know, create one by typing in input and put down another input. But this is taking this back into Maya now, and so we can select on the BiFrost graph, and we can see the word drag there. Whatever you name this here, if we, you know, if we want to rename this port, we could say drag underscore attribute, and that will change the drag attribute here, you know. So we could start at the kind of like a frame 40, whatever it was, 0, put a keyframe in there, and then maybe around frame 80 we would want this to really slow down and just have it at like 10. Put a keyframe there, and then over time that drag is now going to increase at the emission stage. See, now we can see it's sort of slowed down, but we don't need to do that. It's just sort of showing you that you can do that on any influence port at all. So I think really for this look, I'm kind of like thinking that the rate is too much. This 10,000 here is too much, and I'm going to put this down to something like 6,500, and I'm going to do that on the rate on the other one as well, 6,500, because not always are more particles better. I like this kind of magical effect. You know, it looks a bit more sparkly, and I'm kind of happy with that. So the really cool thing about BiFrost is that we've done all of this work, okay? And maybe in the future you don't want to do all of this work again. You like the settings on here, and you like all these different nodes that you've put together, so we can just select them all if we want to. When we're finished, you know, doing what we want to do, we can select them all, and we could right click and go create compound, and I will just call this magic source. If I go inside that compound by double clicking, we can see what we had earlier, yeah? But all we need to do now is publish this. So if I right click and go to publish magic source, okay, and hit publish now, if I hit the tab key and start typing in magic, we can see magic source is now a tool available to us. Okay, so I could delete that, and then I could just have one node going forward the next time I use this scene, and just plug meshes into that, and then plug that out into the source. Let's just do that like so. There you go, it's plugged in. If I rewind and play, we've still got the magic appearing on this side, but we're just using one node. Now what we can do, like the particles, is like we did when we first brought the particles, is right click and go explode. So if I just give myself a bit of room, let's just back up a bit. If I right click and go explode, they'll come back as they were, which is very, very nice. But if I just go Control Z and go back, we can go back to the node again. And we don't actually have to explode. So if I go into that node, you have to make it editable. So once you've published something, you have to make it editable afterwards. So we right click, make editable, and we go inside this node. Okay, and here's all of our stuff. Now I'm just going to undock this so we've got a bit more screen space. Now it depends how technical you are as to whether you want to do things like this or not. But if we start opening up these guys, okay, and we know that within rate we like to play around with min and max, okay, but we can't do that on just one node unless we do this. So if I pull in, I open up this drop down box here, we can see our min and max, right? If I drag in min there and max there, if I go back to our original, we can now see we've got min and max on the new node, and it shows up here. Okay. Now, what I would want to do at this point is create a group, add to group, right click, add to group, new group, and I would call this rate. So we've created a rate group. Min's gone in there straight away. I can right click on max and go add to the rate group. Okay, So now up here it says rate. In here it says rate. So we know that is about the rate of the this very source, and I can do the same with the speed, min, max, like so. And I just go in here and I'm going to create a new group, add to group, new. What did I say that one was called? I've forgotten. Let's cancel that, go in there, speed, and let's just go add to group, new, type in speed, okay, add that in there. And what you are now doing is creating tools for other artists to use or for you to use. So it depends. If you'd like to do this sort of thing, it's a really nice. It's a really nice workflow, and it's kind of interesting. So yeah, we've got those two there. I would carry on and do the rest if I wanted to. I can add some from the source particles, and we can start to create these really nice groups and tools that turn up here. And when we're finished, we can then publish. Again, it's calling it Magic Source 1. But I want to call it Magic Source and publish that. And then the next time we bring that in, Magic Source, we can see that it comes in with those attributes, and you're starting to create a tool that is exposing those attributes. Very, very, very powerful stuff. But let's just explode that for now. Oh, we can't explode it now because we've started to add attributes onto the main node. Let's just go inside, get back to where we were. So let's just Control C, delete this guy, paste our guys back in here again, and we'll just make them look a bit more. Let's just plug this in here first, make them look all a bit more neat and tidy as we were. So you're starting to see just how usable and dynamic BiFrost is. It's pretty clever stuff. It just depends, you know, how much time you've got on your project, whether you want to create tools and stuff like that. We can do the same with all of this kind of stuff. We haven't actually scratched the surface of simulate particles, but what we are going to do is we're just going to quickly look at how we'd go about rendering these. There's a few different things we could do at this point. It really depends on how you like to work. We can cache these out, and if we cache them out, you can then use them with any renderer. Yeah, so if you're using Redshift or whatever, or we can just render as we were. I'd always recommend caching, just because when you're rendering something that's part of a simulation, if you crash, you've got to go all the way through those frames again. So I'm not actually going to cache all of these out, but I would just show you how you would do it. So you would just hit tab and we would start typing in, let's just start typing in cache. Actually, there's a few different caches we can use. If we're staying within Maya, we can use a write BiFrost object. This is a BIF object, Bob object, .bob. And this will enable us to write Bob files. If you've used BiFrost fluids, then you'll know what these are. But these are kind of like natural to Maya, if you will, and they'll only work in Maya. We could write as Alembic if we want to. And we can also write as VDB, points, volumes, and all sorts. So we've got different things that we can write to. Bob is a pretty good size file for us. And so all you would do is just plug your particles into here, and you'd find a file name. So just click onto a file name. So, and in here I would type something like, I don't know, magic dot, and then we want to go 1, 2, 3, 4 hashes, okay? And that's going to enable a image sequence to be written. So I'd hit save, and we can see in here it's now put the prefix file name onto it, .bob, and the next thing you would have to do is add some time to this node. That sounds weird, but that is what you have to do. So I would start typing in time. go to time, and then we want to get frame to time, but we can't connect those. Okay, so you have to put in something called a to long, because we're going to a long bit of code. So frame from to frame, like that. Yeah, and that's now added time. Basically, it's saying to the Bob files, right, yes, you've got an image sequence name there, and yes, I know it needs to happen along the timeline. On that note, whatever your timeline is set to is what you'll be caching to. So if you only want to cache to 250, please put 250 in here, and also make sure your timeline is set not to loop. You want it to play to the end and stop. Okay. Now again, with BiFrost, if you never want to do this again, time, long, whatever, we can select all of those nodes, right click and create a compound, and call this dot bob with time, and then you can publish that, so you never have to worry about it again. You know, you never have to do that again. But you know, I'm quite happy as we were. And then you would plug this into here, you know, rewind your timeline, plug that into there, and then hit play. That will go through and cache all your files. And then when you come back, unplug this straight away. Unplug the connection that will be here straight away, because you don't want to overwrite your files. All right, unplug that, and then you want to put in a read BiFrost object. That's read Bob. Yeah, and then you would take the file name from here, your written files, and place them in the file name here, and then you would do the same thing with this time and too long. Put that back into frame there. And you must remember, if you want to read all of your frames, to put in these 4 hashes. Otherwise, it's not going to work. I've had a lot of questions over that. So the next step you'd want to do, let's forget all this anyway for the moment. Well, if you wanted to render everything out, if you wanted to cache everything out and then you wanted to render it, we would then put in a assign material. Okay, and we would perhaps first do an Arnold, set Arnold point settings. So we take the points out of the Bob object, put them in there, put them into the assign material. But because we haven't actually cached anything on here, but you may, let's just put in a surface material. So I'm just going to put in a standard, because there are now Arnold standard surface materials within BiFrost, or you can drag in your own material from the BiFrost, from the Hypershade. But let's just put in a surface material here, and then you would connect that to the output. We're not going to see anything because we haven't actually cached our files. Well, we did cache 1 frame actually, that's what they're showing up. But you know, we don't have to cache everything. Let's just get rid of all this cache stuff. Let's drag this back here, and let's just plug our particles into the set Arnold point settings, and then let's bring this back here, give it a new output, just because it's got a bit confused. Rewind, play, pow, like so. So now this surface material is what is going to allow us to create like, you know, different colors, like so. And then if I just do an Arnold or area light, just kind of bring that up around here, place that around there, hit 7, go to attributes, turn the intensity up, put the exposure up to about 6, and then we can start to see those particles being lit. Now we can see they've got a kind of shimmering look going on, which you may want because it kind of looks like glitter and cool, but that is coming from the specular in here. So if I just turn the specular to 0, we can see that that's gone, right? And then it would just be like rendering out anything at all on your character. Just you know, within Arnold, we could just go in and render off this sequence now, no problems whatsoever. You know, if I just go to Arnold on a render view and hit render. There we go. And so yeah, we can see our particles there. Obviously we just want a bit more size going on here. Let's go HD. And those particles are self-shadowing and all sorts. So, you know, it looks pretty cool. Renders very fast. You know, Arnold's actually going through as we are playing this, giving us a little feedback of what this looks like. But you may want to go in and just add some like emission or something like that to give them a much cooler look. We could be in emission. We could add a bit of blue, perhaps, a bit of sort of light blue there, and then let's just start pulling up the emission. Blue always looks cool on particles. We could just bring in a bit of that specular if we want them to look a bit shiny, a bit speckly and such. And really a lot of these kind of like effects are happen in post. So you would take these into post and just add a bit of glow to it and stuff like that. Let's just see how we're looking. Ciao. So with these guys selected, with these guys we can add, let's just go back to 5 for a minute. We can add more shapes to this. So let me just get a bit more screen space going on here. So at the moment we're using 2 spheres, but we may think, well, actually these 2 spheres are cool, but I want another 2 spheres and I want them smaller inside. So let's just, for a minute, look at this right one. And if I just go Control D, and then I might want to scale this one down on the inside, okay? So that I've got this new inner force, yeah? And so what I think I could do is go, right, actually, let's copy and paste all of this. Dun, 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 done. And I'll go Control C, Control V down here. Let's just neaten all that up. And I'm going to bring in that new sphere, and I'm going to create like an inner power ball. And I'll just plug that into the sources. Give ourselves a bit more room. Let's move some of these things out of the way. We don't need those all clustered up together. Just keep things looking neat and tidy, and then, you know, we're not going to have any kind of problems. Backdrop there. So just taking it a little step further, we've got this inner sphere going on here. I've tweaked some of the settings, but what we're going to do now is we are actually going to separate out some of the colors so that we can see things a little bit better. So this is the inner sphere down below here. This extra step is a little bit more complicated, but not too bad. On each source particle, we can add color to each like separate source. So if I right click on additional properties here, I can create a source color property node. Okay. For some reason it's gone right up there, but let's just drag it down. So here in its base color, I'll just make this maybe sort of like pink, just for the middle. And then also on the right hand, on the outer particles, I'll just right click here and go source color property. And these ones I'm going to make blue, maybe a light blue, something like that. I'm just going to unplug our other particle system for a second now. Now we won't see those particle colors turn up just yet. See, we can see that they are all the same color as what's coming through here. That's because we need to add an extra node. So here, if we just start typing in the word reference, we need a thing called a set geo property reference. Okay. Now that's going to look to all of these different sources, and these are basically geo property references, okay, that we add into each source. This little node looks to them and then separates them all out and gives us the colors we want from the points. So this node sits between the material and the assigned material, so I'm just going to hit Alt and I'm going to click that just to drop it in there. You can do it manually if you want. Now we have to assign a couple of names in here. We have to type in base underscore color here and color here. That corresponds to where it says color here and base color here, okay? Now if we rewind and play, we should see those color properties separated out, but we don't. Let me just re-plug this into a new input. Sometimes it just needs to be reset, and there we go. Now we can see the different colors. We've got pink on the inside and blue on the outside. So if we rewind and play, now we can see the difference. So that's working well, which is nice because we can start to see, you know, the different levels of energy within our object, and then we can start playing with the colors here. It may be that we don't want a blue because that color blue is a bit too close to pink. Maybe we want to go with a red, something like that, that kind of complements the pink. And obviously you can color pick from references and that kind of thing. I'll rewind and play. That red again could do with maybe being a bit darker. Something like that. Let's just hit 7 to see it lit. Again, does seem to need to have that colour different to the other colour. Let's just try and make it a bit darker. It's kind of gone back to blue there. Am I playing with the right one? Yeah. Let's try a yellow. I just want to create something that just looks different enough. There we go. And then maybe I'll make this one blue. It all looks different when it's rendered anyway. But it's really just for display purposes. There we go. So we can see the difference between the two. No problem now. But yeah, that's how you sort of bring in extra color to different elements, and now we can build on this. Could create more shapes and get more kind of colors going on. Maybe that central one we want to add more in terms of rate. So maybe in this one I'll say it's a minimum of 5,000 in this one, because we want a kind of real hot ball in the middle. Maybe I'll take this up to 15,000. Right, to play, and there we can see a lot more particles going on that. Maybe we want to put some more particles into this one as well. Let's go to 12,000. And it's just a case of copying that over onto these guys, really. You know, we can create a right-hand side sphere onto this one. Quite simply, we'll just, you know, Control D, that sphere that was there, and then we'll just scale that down, and then we'll bring that in for the smaller one. And the beauty with this is that we can obviously just copy everything over from down here. For the inner ball, I've switched off the set. The use color sets. So it's just Control C, Control V up here. Plug this bad boy in and plug that into the source. Plug these guys both back into the source. And we know that we've got a color on this one. And if I want the same color on this source, I can copy this one, Control C, Control V. Plug that into here. and all of those sources, all those colors will copy down the line. So if I rewind and play now, we just got to make sure that this is all plugged in. That's the yellow, that's the blue. So we've got the blue and the yellow. And this should be yellow actually. Let's get the yellow, and this one should be blue, which is the new batch. Let's create a backdrop there. Place these up here. Let's just replug this in because sometimes it just needs to be reset onto a new node. And there we can see we've got the same thing going on. So really powerful, really cool. Seems to get slightly complicated here, but I mean, you know, as I said before, the power of this is that we never have to do any kind of long task twice. So if I want to grab all of these now and create a compound out of this whole thing, including the color properties, I can. So I can just go create compound, and then if I want to start building on that compound, I can go into here and be like, okay, yeah, well, I'd like to see the color swatches showing up on my source compound, and I can start dragging in those kind of color attributes onto this, and you can see that they're starting to show up here. We can build ourselves a nice little tool, name it, publish it like I showed you earlier, and we never have to do this ever again. Same down here. If I want to put this surface material and this set geo property reference and the assigned material and create a compound out of all of those, I can, and I never have to do that again. I might want to do that because I don't want to have to remember what order these specific terms have to be every time, you know. So yeah, very, very powerful, super cool, and yeah, enjoy.
So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed that and you learnt a lot. You can see how powerful BiFrost can be. Now, I'd love to see what you made, so post it down in the comments below, and hopefully we'll get Phil back in the future to do some more VFX-based tutorials. Now, if you can give this video a like to help the algorithm, subscribe, tell your friends, and I'll see you in the next one.